Well, a new investigative report has linked Russia's shadowy mercenary Wagner Group to companies tied to the Sudanese militia. Our press reviewer, Deeptika Laurent, is here to take us through it.
That's right, Aaron. This is a joint report by the French newspaper Le Monde and the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project that you see here today, the OCCRP, that's really in this article here today exposing strong ties between that shadowy mercenary Wagner group run by the Russian businessman Yevgeny Prigozhin, a close ally of the Russian president, and the ties to the Sudanese military and ruling powers. Essentially, the Wagner Group in this article is accused of, through its subsidiaries, of training and supporting the Sudanese military in exchange for things like resident permits, weapons, and importantly, access to the country's gold reserves. Sudan is the third largest country in terms of gold reserves in Africa. One person is cited in this article as saying that the situation is all the more problematic because both the Wagner Group and the Sudanese militia are two of the blackest of black figures in the world economy. Prigozhin has long denied the existence of the Wagner Group, which is accused of war crimes in Syria, Ukraine, and in certain African countries. It was only just a few months ago, back in September, when he was forced to acknowledge that the group does exist.
Well, in other stories making the papers this morning, the COP27, is set to begin in a few days in the Egyptian resort town of Sharm el-Sheikh. And there's a lot of expectation for world leaders to, yet again, finally take concrete action on climate change.
Well, let's start with the Egyptian presidency. Have a look at what they're saying. This is from the Egypt Daily News. This is an opinion piece written by Marwa El-Shinawi, who basically today warns rich countries not to use the current geopolitical crisis, in other words, the war in Ukraine, to shirk their responsibilities towards developing countries. What's interesting is in the Western press, the focus is more on Egypt's human rights records. It is at least the case for the Washington Post today. The editors here urging world leaders not to lose sight of the despot and his political prisoners. The Washington Post reminding us of Egypt's persecution of political dissidents, in particular one man, Alaa Abdel Fattah, a British Egyptian activist who's currently imprisoned in Egypt for his role in the pro-democracy movement that ousted former leader Hosni Mubarak. The Post saying that leaders concerned about saving the planet need to care as much about the cause of liberty in Egypt. And it is also the focus of the Lebanese French language newspaper L'Orient Le Jour today, which is focusing on, in its front page, a portrait here you see it here, a portrait of life in Egypt under Sisi. It's they're running a series of reports about what life is like under Sisi, and in particular in the first episode that's in their edition today, how he has concentrated power into his own hands and really silenced dissent.
Well, in other news, here in France, the culture minister has weighed into a long-term debate about the delays of releases of films in cinemas and to television.
Well, it's long been a thorny issue here in France, at least for international film distributors. Current rules impose a 15 to 17-month delay between the release of a film in cinemas and then its release to free-to-air television or streaming platforms, as it is the case now. It became a controversial issue recently because Disney Plus sort of waded into the discussion. They lobbied for an even shorter framework than the 15 to 17-month delay, and actually said they would skip the theatrical release of one of their films, Strange World, and put it straight to streaming, to its streaming platform to comply with the film's global releases. Now, the media chronology rules in France have long been criticized by streaming platforms. The delay before the new rules were brought in was 36 months, and it was introduced initially to protect French cinemas, but it is certainly becoming a thorny issue with the rise of streaming platforms now.
And finally, from you, Dipti, a tweet by a French social media user intending to poke fun at Americans' lack of geographic knowledge has taken a life of its own. Tell us more.
Well, it's a great story. It's in the Times today. You can read about it. The French having fun with the fictional country Listenbourg. So it started off with this tweet here. Aaron, this guy Gaspardo tweeting a few days ago that he was pretty sure Americans did not know that this country here existed It doesn't exist. It's just, there is no country north of, adding here to Portugal. Anyway, he said this country is called Listenbourg. It's a fictional country, but no sooner than he posted the tweet, there was a bit of political jostling. This is a French political group at the European Parliament. They quickly welcomed the adhesion of Listenbourg to the EU. The country also got its own press agency, a foreign ministry, and even its own weather board. The weather board here tweeting that Listenbourg is expecting heavy rains in the days to come. Even companies got in on the fun. There was Amazon Prime Video who announced a new documentary. The food delivery service Deliveroo announced that it will now deliver food to Listenbourg. Listenbourg delegation has also joined the Paris 2024 Games. That's what the organizers of the Paris Olympics tweeted out. And also a French Formula One commentator, Julien Febvre, here, who tweeted that Listenbourg is also getting its own Formula One Grand Prix, which will take place on the 29th, 30th, and 31st of February next year. So everyone having their bit of fun at the expense of Americans, unfortunately.
The 29th, 30th, and 31st of February, I imagine that that's because it's a leap year, so those dates don't exist, or have I taken it too far?
I think you've taken it too far.
Okay.
There is no 30th or 31st.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's
February.
true.
There's only a 29th, and that's only on a leap year. And we're not in a leap year next year, Erin, either.
Okay, well, I am
sorry.
the target of those types of jokes indeed. Dipti Laurent, thank you very much.